Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Hemang Panchal. This is the 8th webinar exploring the functionality of Powerproject. Previous webinars are on the Solid Support website, where you will also find information on Powerproject online training courses. Remember that Solid Support can help with your Powerproject setup, templates, and code libraries. We are once again lucky to have Chris Ray with us from Alicosoft to conduct today's session. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Hemang. Thank you, everybody, and good morning to everybody. I think we've just got a couple of people joining at the moment, but we'll start off. So if I present my screen, hopefully everybody can see my screen now with an intro slide. And today we're going to be looking at status and reporting using Powerproject BIM 4D. So the BIM module to Powerproject is an add-on module that allows you to take the 3D model and link it to your project. We're not going to go through the details of that side of it today. We do have previous webinars, and you can always request a demo from us. And if you don't have Powerproject at the moment, you can always request a trial, which will also include the BIM module for that trial period. So before we start, just a couple of basics on here on the webinar that we're using. So you will have this panel at the side that will allow you to minimize it so it doesn't interfere with what you're seeing on your screen. You are all muted, so we won't be able to hear anything anyone says, but there is a questions option in there which you can click in and type a question in, and that question will then pop up in front of ourselves, myself and Hemang. We will look to either answer that as it goes or look to answer those at the end of the session. Feel free to ask any questions you want about what you're seeing, and again, if we can't answer it, then we'll come back to you after the webinar. This webinar will be recorded, and following the webinar, the link that you've got to it will allow you to rewatch it, and we also will send a new link out to everybody so you can share it with yourselves and colleagues to watch this webinar. So on that note, we will proceed to the webinar. So from this webinar side, there's not much actually in a sense of slides, so I'm not going to be overwhelmed by a slide deck. We're going to look at some of the areas here about entering progress into Powerproject and how that's represented and how we can see that within the actual 4D simulation and inside the model, baselinings, and how that works, and then with comparisons as well. And again, all of this is around not just Powerproject, but the 4D, 3D model that's inside there, and then representing progress on the 4D model as well, in different ways that can be done. There's more stuff we'll cover around that, but we will be going through actually using the software and showing this information. So on that note, when we talk about baselining, we're talking about baseline the project. So here, for example, we have a very simple project with the green task being the main project task and the yellow underneath being the baselines. You can see visually there's a difference there. We can report about variances between those activities. And obviously when we're simulating, we can also, there's a number of ways we can represent those delays that may have been caused by progress and ahead or behind, or weather impacts and so forth, and the updating, the statusing of the project. So we will be able to represent that on there. We'll also be able to see that we can do comparisons. So here's just a very simple part drawing again, and we have one of the pours of the slab happening, and it's actually gone red. And in here, this is a comparing it against the baseline. It's gone red, so it means it's actually behind schedule at this point in time. You can define the colors that it appears, so we can see that. We can also look at comparisons where we can actually get the software to give us a comparison against where we actually are drawing, which is on the left, and where we should have been on that model when we're actually simulating it. So we can have two windows open at the same time, showing us the comparisons, and I'll show you how we do that within Powerproject and the BIM side. So it's very straightforward. We do that. So what we'll do is we'll actually get straight into this and say, if you have any questions of what you see, just let us know, as we go through. So all I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to just bring up Powerproject here, and this is version 15.02. I would also like to say that in the next month we have version 16 being released, so we'll run a webinar on the new features and functionalities that brings to the table. So in this sense here, I've just got a very simple project that I'm showing on screen, linked to a very simple model. I'm only using a simple model. It's very easy to demonstrate here. You can use any size models you want, up to very complex federated models that in a system of 50, 60 models, which we've seen by a number of clients now using it. So in here we've got our model, and again, what we've done here, just to explain, if I go into my BIM side and do my track selection for the moment, when I click on a particular item here, you can see it's been linked to the model. If I click on this, and this particular slab was a single slab, but inside Powerproject we split it into 4 pieces for the different pours that we're going to have. We also then have said inside here that the walls on this building have been assigned to the same task. So you see this one task has been assigned to draw all the external walls on there. But then what also we've done with inside the BIM, we've gone through in now properties, and each wall has been defined an order. So in there, that's number 42, that's number 43. So when it draws that task and goes across time, it will follow the build order that you specify against each object. You don't have to do it, it just gives you an option of how you want to do that. We've also added into the sister in here, we've told it that when we draw a wall, it draws upwards. When we draw a slab, it goes left or right in there. And so once we've done that, and in here, this very simple project, if I actually go in here and literally hit let's move it around, and let's go in here and say, okay, well, let's hit the play button in here. And as we play that, you should be able to see that coming across, that it draws the building as it follows through, puts the internal walls and so forth in as it goes through. So that very quickly just demonstrates that the project we've got is linked up to this model and creates a 4D simulation, which is great to start with. But then what we want to do is we would then, as a project before we start, we know this is what's been agreed. We would baseline that. And in here, we've baselined it already as the original. And if I go into my format, I can turn my baseline on, yellow tasks underneath. That represents where everything is. And again, with Powerproject baselining, it doesn't just remember where the task is start and finish. It remembers the links, the codes, the calendars, the resources. It's an entire copy of the project it remembers. So for every baseline, and you can create as many baselines as you want. So again, what we would recommend as you go through this sequence, every progressing period you go through, which may be weekly and so forth, you can baseline and create a new snapshot of what it looks like. So you've always got that back to refer back to. And that's part of building up this repertoire of data that you can report on at any point. So we've got that set up in here. In this project here, you may see we've got a progress line going down the screen at the moment. And we've actually set up over here, we've got our progress period. So Powerproject allows you to have multiple progress periods. And so these would be if you're used to your data line or progress date in here. We have progress periods. There's week 1. If I look at week 2, if I look at week 3, you can see they're different colors and it moves across. And it allows me to choose which period I'm actually entering progress for. So very quickly, when we look at entering progress, and here we're not going to concentrate on the method of entering progress, because that can be many different ways. And again, just to highlight to you, I mean, we're just going to use simple percentages, but Powerproject will enable you to enter either percentage, duration percentage, or duration, so an actual amount of time that's been done. If you've got task work on there, you can complete it by the units of work you've done. You can specify your actual start and actual finish date for that particular piece of work and what period it's set against. If you had costing and resourcing inside assigned to here as well, you could progress by the amount of effort or the amount of work or actually the amount of spend that you've got on there. That's all available, but ultimately it creates a amount of progress on that task, and that's all we're going to focus on at this point. I'm using overall percent complete column, but you could be using any or a combination of those other formats, as in you may say the task is a so much amount complete, but then you want to enter an actual cost for that period as well, which may differ from the percentage of the task. And that the software will allow you to do that if you wanted to. But again, that's more advanced stuff that may be covered in previous webinars we've already done or future ones that are coming up. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm reporting against my week 1, as I've got my set here, and I'm literally going to just enter some percentages. I'm going to say we've done 100% of that task, and the second task we've done 50%. And that's all I've done for that progress time now. Now, because I've done that, I could then recalculate and reschedule the project, and I'm going to progress and reschedule it to my progress entry period. And this moves the activities. Now, it's important that when you're dealing with 4D simulation and you want to see the differences, that when you apply your progress and reschedule, you actually allow it to move the tasks. Because if that task, even though that we've only done half of what we should have done, but that task didn't get moved out, we can't see a physical delay inside our model because it's not going to be evident to us. So in here, what I can do is, now I've done that, if I just went to play, it would just play as normal, but now using the timeline I've given it inside there. But what I can do is in the model, I can go into my settings and I can simulate this, the live dates, but highlight the baseline differences. And I can choose which baseline I'm simulating to. So as simple as I've entered a few percentages there, I've got a link model and a baseline. Now, when I press play in here, you can see that if I just move this back a bit so you can see already it's now highlighting this is the task that's happening, but it's late. So for the period it's late, it's now going red inside the model. So as you will see, we go forward here, you can see that the number of activities now are, as they're building, are actually late because they're in delay. Now, if we move some things back, and I might just say we did something to mitigate this, and I'm just going to recalculate this progress period. We're now ahead of schedule. If I looked at that as we go through, you can see that the items that are now, we might be red, but as it goes through, those items go green because they're now happening ahead of schedule. So very quickly, we can see the impacts and present that information back to people. So I'm just going to undo that back, and let's just go to schedule. And that's there, we push that out. So that's our first week of progress, normal progress. We can represent that on here. We can choose to highlight those activities. And if I wanted to, then I could highlight those activities, and then I could just go into my BIM side and I could just say, show only selected activities. That's the activities I've got there. Show all of those. I can go into here and I can show completed activities. So it'll show what's been completed in the model. And I can also, if I show all again, I can hide completed. So this is the items that are left for us in here. So we can see that very quickly. So again, the advantage is once you've got it linked, you can represent and report against this model over here. If I now say, for example, that I'm going to be entering progress for week 2, now what I would normally do, I'm not going to do it at this point, but I would go and baseline, create a baseline for that. But I'm just going to go to week 2. I'm now entering progress for week 2. So I can now say we've done 100%. Notice how the task changes color for the progress section. And then here I can say, well, unfortunately, we were slightly behind there, but actually we did a little bit as well here. So if I do that and I reschedule again, straighten into this progress period, which is our week 2, it now pushes this over, it relinks around the completed sections to give us the representation of where we are. And again, at any stage, if I want to, I can do here to see how we've done. And again, if I wanted to, I can see the differences and so forth between those. But let me just go a step further and say in here, I'm just going to enter for week 3. And in week 3, we're going to say that we did this, and we did this, and we did, 20% of this, and I'll just recalculate. So you can see we're building up a repertoire of what we've done in the project and how it's impacted that. Now, it's very good for us to be able to go into our BIM side and settings and represent the timeline against the baseline and see those differences in there, but you have to try and catch where it is, and if you're on the right point, you don't see that happening. So one of the things we've introduced into here is the ability that we can open up a comparison window. So we're now opening this window here, which is our comparison window, and I can move it to the same, just by right-clicking, move it to the same point in here. And now when I go into my settings, I can actually say, well, actually, the second window is going to simulate the baseline dates. And the baseline I'm choosing here is my original baseline that I created. Could be any of the baselines you choose. So then if I now run the simulation again, you can see it, I can pause it there. On this particular date of the 13th of April, this is where we are, and this is where we should have been. So suddenly we can now see where we are and what's actually being simulated, much clearer way of seeing the differences between that. And again, makes it clearer than just seeing this bar chart information. So we're now using this as a reporting tool. We can create videos of this, of where we're going to be. And we can use those as representations. And remember, once we're linked to the model, you just progress on a weekly basis and it updates on that side. It also does mean that if I have my tracking bar chart setting on here, any object that I click in, let's track selection as well. Any object I click on, it displays in here, and I can actually enter progress for that just by selecting. So I can select items in here, and in there, I've got my properties, and I can enter progress against those inside there. I can also choose to have my window open at the bottom here. So when I track items inside here, they'll be selected, and I can look at the progress information down here. And while that's selected, I can enter progress of my actual and overall percent complete, inside here as I wish to go. So I can use it both ways. I can select the tasks, or I can select the objects that that are linked to those tasks to progress inside here. So again, I can run that simulation. I can see it, how it works. I can also go into settings from reporting purposes. I can override the simulation end date. So in here, I can set a date, or within Powerproject, a lot of the date selectors you have in these dialogues have variable dates where I can choose the current progress period. So now, when I run my simulation in here, if I do that, if I track selection, if I hit the play button, now it's running the simulation from the start of the project. You can see it's highlighting items in here, and it's going, but it will stop on this progress date here. So it'll stop of where the week we're progressing up to. And you can see here, then we can see the differences. We can report and print on that as we go. So very quickly and easily, and just standard options of exporting that and printing that. I press stop. We also have a feature inside here which becomes useful, is that we have, if you're playing with a lot of these items in here and moving them around, we have an option in here to create flipbooks. So that we can create videos, and we can create a video that you can share with people, but we can also create flipbooks. And if I go into here, what a flipbook is, it allows me to take a snapshot of my model every whatever period I want it to be. So I can say every Monday, create a picture for me. And so it's now going to go every Monday, it's going to take a snapshot of the picture, and I can include just the model or have the comparison window. So here I can have the comparison window on the right or below, or just the model only. So if I do this, I've set this to create. If I hit create, it's now created that successfully. And if I go to my flipbook folder, it's now created a sample, which is the name of my project. And if I go into here, it's creating me two simple ones. And remember, it's simulating up to the progress date. So it's currently only got the two ones, and that's the 29th of March, and that's the 5th of April. This is where I should be, this is where I am, and this is where I should be, and so forth in there. But if I come out of that, and if I just set my simulation back to remove that date in here, so I'm simulating the whole thing, go into my Create Flipbook, and I just click on Create. If I now open up here, it's now created one, and it's now created a picture for every Monday of where I am and where I should be through to the end of the project. Again, depending, well, I'm just choosing weekly here at the moment. You have options inside here where you can annotate that, choose by code library, put image overlays and text around and the name, some free text and so on there. Right, project info in there. And if I create that, that's now created my third folder in here. And there's my live project info displayed and so forth in there. And again, you can have alternate information on this, and this could be my free text of my baseline. So it allows me a different way of reporting in there. Let's create that. And inside here, my project info. You can change the font style, you can add dates and the various other things around there. Again, inside there. So it's just different ways of reporting that. And obviously inside here, we can change the colors, the background color and so forth if we wanted to, but it's a very useful way to see this information. Now I've done that, and again, what some of the things I can do, if I go back to here and I say show completed, that's what's completed inside there. So it's just showing me that information there. I come out of that. If I go back to show all my information inside here and say show all tasks in there. If I wanted to in here, I can, from a reporting perspective, I can go into here and I can highlight a section of my project. So I might highlight those, or let's just say, for example, I highlight my superstructure and I can say show only selected. I can see superstructure. If I look at internals, and I can say show only selected, that's my internals inside the building. So again, I can see these instantly as we look at that. So if I just show all again, one of the things though that people want to see is they want to see, you know, how things maybe I can see my different wall colors, roof and so forth, but can I represent my progress visually on my model? And the answer is yes, you can. In over here, I've got a code library called progress state. There's a process of assigning it, but one of the things we can do into our model properties, I can go into the color override on the model, and that's my background color, and I can override element colors if I wanted to. But I can also go in here and I can actually say, I want to use a code library, so my progress state. So there I assign my progress state inside there, and if I display that code library on my screen at the moment, and if I say display code library, what I can do is I can highlight all the completed activities I've got in here like this and say these are completed in there, which will go green. I can say the tasks that I've got which are in progress, which I've done there, and then the rest of them I can say they're either not started and so forth, so they will appear as grey. So now I've got a representation of, as I go through, of what's been completed, what's in progress, and what's not started. Again, a visual override that I can produce and use to show people. And again, on a much more complex model, this becomes very useful to be able to see. But I say very quickly, I can see that. I can also, because I've done progressing in my project, and I've done progress in here. And for example, if I add a column in from progress, and I add a column as progress at period, so you may, we've got our progress periods. I can say progress at, I can say week 1 in here, and set that progress column to week 1. Let's add another one in, set that at week 2, and then we set that to week 2. Add another one and say week 3, just so you can see this. So in here, this now shows me how much progress I did each line. So each progress line I moved to, so each week by week, and you can see the progress as it builds up inside there. The advantage with that is I can see that, but I could also create a filter, and I've created a very simple one here that just asks me for tasks in progress for week 2, for example, and then completed for week 2. That shows me in there. And then what I can do is I can just, in my model, I can start to say, well, let me show high and show only the view. So those are the items that were completed and worked on in that week. So I can then see that, I can just come out of that. And that enables me, rather than just selecting tasks, I can filter out based on my progress that I've used. So again, it very quickly I can create those views of that progress that I've got there. And again, if I wanted to, I can use the flipbooks to use those colors if I wanted to inside there. So anything you can do in progress on your Gantt chart, you can then start representing that information inside your actual chart as well. So very quickly, as I say, you see how we enter progress, and as you build up your progress, create your baselines and multiple baselines, you can see that information build up as you go, and then it's just down to how you want to represent that in there. Now, when I'm looking at this at the moment, and I can see I'm completed up to that point here, let's just go to a period of time. See, I can move the date, or if I go up to here. So if I do progress up to my progress period, one of the things I can do is when I go to File, when I go to a print option in here, I can go to my print options inside here, and I can choose a border file that includes the BIM side in there as well. And if I just find it there, chart BIM, there we go. So we can have that. I chose A4. Let's choose this landscape. So I can have that, and that will show me where I'm up to at that side. And if I've got colors in there, it uses those colors. Now, if you don't like it taking up half the sheet, we have PowerDraw that allows you to modify your borders to display however you want them to display. You could even not have the chart and just have the 3D model. Classically, going into Office now, people have those 3D models on the walls. You can have that, giving you the name of it inside there. So it's a very, you can no longer just report the Gantt chart progress, you can report that progress within inside the model. And again, I can create my videos. From there, I can create fly paths that move around the model. And again, just to give you an idea of, this side of it, here is a more complex project that we have that's linked up. This model here itself has the, if I just bring up the categories, we have a number of different models. We have a architectural model, which I can turn off. We have a structural model I can turn off, and then you have an M&E model that's in there as well. And they're all linked up to this project inside here. And inside here, we've also got our baseline with some rapid delays and impacts on it and so forth in there, which means if I wanted to, for this model alone, I could go into the fly path set as well. And if I hit play, you can see, and hopefully that starts to come up. Maybe a little bit jerky on the video and the presentation, but it's now building up that model in line with what's happening there. And again, at the moment, this is possibly set for quite a while. It takes a while to do, but see, it's moving around. It's going into different views. It can animate itself as it moves around. That's all the fly path stuff, so you can represent that if you wanted to in here. And again, when I'm progressed up to a certain point, if I stop for a moment, I can go to there, or for example, and I might have that set like that. And if I went to print, that's what could be printed along with it. If I did flip books, I could see what it's going to look like every week or every month. So if I went in here and I said, I'm going to create a flip book in here, and in this one, I'm going to create it, and it's going to be every Monday. Rather than that, I can say month, the first Monday of every month in there. And if I literally click on create, I'm going to go off and create that. There, it's created that. And then you'll see here, this is now got combined, separate folder. And here we have that one there. And I can skip through and see where we are. So it gives a visual representation, like the animation, but actually pictures at the point in time. And I can choose a resolution that goes out at. It moves where the flipbook moves and so forth inside there. So it's very quick and easy to create that. And once set up in your project, as you see, it's really quick and easy to do. And again, if I just go back into here and show my comparison window in here, I can remove that back. And I can say, let's just move to the same point in here, like so. And in my settings, I can simulate the second one using the baseline. I can choose the baseline I'm using. I have override start and finish dates and so forth in there. And now when I press play, you can see that we started early rather than we're there. And then we can see it starting to catch up. And this is where we should have been. So we're actually behind schedule, though we started early. We've had some delays. I can pause that. I'm playing here over a very short period of like 45 seconds, but depending on the length of your project, you can choose how long that is, and you can demonstrate that side of it. So very quickly, as you can see, progressing and using the model, it's very quick and easy. Obviously, questions that people have around this side of it, when they're talking about bringing in models, might be the case of, well, our models change every week. Especially at a certain point, as you're going through it and setting it up, you might have new models. That's not a problem. In the model properties, you just manage the revisions and you can add new revisions in and import them through. You can transfer any splits you've done from one to the new revision, so they'll be brought across. So you have all of that control inside there. So it doesn't matter how many revisions you get, you can do that. The only time the links are impacted inside here is if they've actually deleted objects from the model and redrawn them, so they're no longer the same object. So that will be a challenge on that side of it. And then it's a case of, as you see, just simply progressing and working through that side of it. So really, this is, to state in now whether you're using site progress, where you export the data and import it back in, that will do exactly the same thing. How the method of actually progressing, as I said, doesn't actually matter because you're progressing it and you can represent it onside the model in there. You can select any items you want at any point, and you can say, for example, I want to see those. So for example, I could go into my not started activities and I could open those as a separate item there. These are all the non-started items in there, and I could then just show view, and that is everything that hasn't yet been completed. Again, from a progressing and reporting point, this could be really important. If I ran a time slice on my project, I could show the items that are happening in between that period. So it's really quick and easy to group and see that information. The hardest part really, well, not even the hardest part, but the most important part is linking your project to the model. And we do have another webinar that we showed that, where you could simply drag and drop or actually create searches. And again, over here, this model over here is used via searches inside the system to find the objects that are in there. So that's how it's created in there. You can add site objects in to bring in to show you that you're bringing them in the right option, so the cranes come in at the right point. That's all available to you. So that's hopefully gives you an overview of progressing with the BIM model. It's once it's in there. Again, I've got everything on one screen here. These windows do move out. If you've got multiple screens, you can have them on different screens inside there. So in realistic terms, you wouldn't be trying to work on just one screen. You would just spread it across multiple screens to work on there. You may not have the comparison window open at all times. You may just have that one open as you're working through it. And again, your progress columns that you have set up are, in the sense, the normal columns you would use. We have all the power inside here. If I go into my table and go into progress, again, I can look at my progress columns with all the different components, actual task work, if I'm using task work, actual start and finish as I go through any of this. I go back to there. You can see that all this information is getting filled in inside here and just populated in there. So you have all the good progress information that goes along with your model. In my model, I can just show all items back inside there. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, if there's anything anyone else wants to see or any specific questions about what we've seen. It's been quite a short one, but hopefully gives you an introduction of the kind of things you can do. I know someone's asked a question about if the model is if the BIM side is standard in Powerproject. It is an add-on, so you have Powerproject and then you add on that. It is available as either a perpetual license, so you buy it and you own the license, or you can buy 6 or 12-month subscription licenses to both Powerproject with BIM. Someone said, can you have the BIM version without the Powerproject? No, it is a module that needs to be added onto there. One of the other things that you do have an ability to do is, if I go into we have an application called the Project Viewer. So this is available from the Alicosoft website. You can download this for free. There is no charge for it. It is just a viewer, but it does allow you to open up a project. So if you've been working in Powerproject over here and you've set this up, you could, if you want to do a file, save as, and I could save this to my desktop, and I could save this as, rather than the Powerproject file, I could save it as an APV BIM file. And if I do that inside there, then what I can do is, if I just save that there, just minimize that, and inside the viewer, let's wait for that to load. Inside, once that's loaded, that will allow me to open up that project inside there. I think it's there with the model inside, and it allows me to run any simulations I want. Just need to open that again. Run any simulations I want in here, along with being able to view the progress data that's been displayed by you in the columns. So as long as you've displayed it in the columns, you can do that connecting to VPN. So let's try to recover that information. But that's, so you have the project viewer in there. Other questions that people have asked, well, that sort of directs it as well, because in Powerproject as well, you do have an ability to import. Someone's asked about importing other files. We can import Microsoft Project MPP files if you have project on your machine. If not, you can import the Microsoft Project XML files and export them as well. If you have P6, we can import XML and XER files, and we can actually import SureTrack files, and we can export XML and XER files. So there is a way of doing that side of it, and there is a process you could do to bring those projects in and use this to run the simulations and progress against those. I mean, so that was someone had it there, and again, everything, you have full functionality of your Gantt chart. that you would normally in your scheduling and planning tool. So someone's asked, can you extract the model comparison as a video? Yes, you can. So inside Powerproject, when you create a video in here, and the only reason I'm not doing that, it takes a few minutes to actually generate. It doesn't take that long really. But in there, when I actually do this, it's actually giving me an option if I turn on my comparison window in here, and I just move that there. What I can do is when I create my video, it's actually got the option in here, you can see, of actually just the model only or with the comparison. So just like the flip books, we can see that bring in that side of it. So, and you can annotate it and put comments around the video just in the same way as you can with the flipbook side of it. So you can create these separate videos out. And again, once you've got your model linked up, it just becomes a weekly thing you can do, which is actually very powerful because most people end up simulating weekly, monthly or quarterly because they have to do lots of relinking and so forth. So we have another question in here. Someone's asked is what supported BIM models file format. So we deal with purely at this point is IFC. So we work with IFC 2.3 and 4. We are looking at the new 4.5 or 4.6 one there, and it allows you to import those IFCs. You can either bring them in individually, or you can bring multiple files in and federate them together inside Powerproject. Even if those models don't line up, there is options inside Powerproject to align those models. So what someone's asked about, can the schedule and model be linked to cost? So what you would do is if I just go to, let's go back to my normal table in here, that's in here, this is my normal one. Inside Powerproject, you have a full set of cost centers that you can create. Those cost centers can be hierarchy based inside here. I can add columns in inside here to have costs, like so, and then I can literally have cost allocated to there, gives me a running total, and obviously that means that those items could be the cost of those items inside the model. So it brings those in, and I can do the same thing for resources. I can break this down as I want inside there. I can also, if I just allocate a cost to some other activities, must be excessive costs, but just get in here. What I can do is I can then just literally put a new histogram on in here, and I can then just do my costs, which I believe is project cost there, and I can then do my cost inside here. So as you can see, that will show me in there, so I can see the cost going up. So as I'm simulating, I can see what the costs are. I didn't cost load my baseline, so it's not showing me that, but it would show me a comparison cost with baselines as well. And the same thing with resources. And as well, when we talk about costs, we can have inside Powerproject, we can have costs and we can have income or revenue. So you can actually say have your actual costs you're putting in, but you can also have the revenue you're expecting to your billing milestones and so forth. So you can actually start to work out cash flow of income and revenue, going into that. All about just loading that information in and so forth. As part of the group, we do have a estimating package called BidCon, and we actually integrate at the moment with that, where it brings that information across from the estimate into Powerproject. So hopefully that answers your questions. Does anyone else have any other questions at all? If not, I think that's most questions. If anything else, we will respond to those as we go. Again, I say if you do have further questions, do contact Solid Support, follow up on this, to see if any, what questions you have. And again, remember that you can get a trial version of Powerproject if you don't already have Powerproject. On there, you can get a trial version of BIM added to a Powerproject if you already have Powerproject to have a play with it. That trial will be a couple of weeks long. In there, and all you just need some IFC files to play around and work on that. And so we do have some other webinars that we've gone through this as well. So please let us know if you have any questions, how we can assist. And other than that, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope all you have a good day. Thank you very much.